Gribblespack was not having a good day. Not a good day at all. For one thing, he'd been mugged, and secondly, his priceless valuables, many of which had been given to him by his pod family, had been stolen by the very same mugger. It truly was not a good day, and his human friend, Chad Pope, picked up on his despondency the instant he entered their shared domicile. "Hey man, what's up? Looking a little bummed," the human said from his place upon their shared couch. Chad was a surprisingly fit human, even though he was typically only found in three places: the couch, his bed, and the bar. If he participated in gym culture, Gribblespack didn't know. Yet even for his apparent lack of a job, he was still always on time with rent and even pitched in for things they needed, like food. By Plopple Cleep's hellish armpits, he even helped clean. So his lack of variation when it came to his routine did not weigh too heavily on Gribblespack. He also threw killer parties. Humans are some wild people. "I got mugged and my valuables taken," Gribblespack said, slumping down onto the couch beside his friend and roommate. Immediately, Chad put down the game controller he'd been holding, having paused his session of Skyrim, 100th Anniversary Edition. "Shit, man, I'm sorry. Wait, which valuables? Wallet and comms or your valuables?" he asked, knowing full well the difference between them. "The latter." A deep sigh escaped Gribblespack, and Chad made a sound that the alien had only ever heard him make when he was annoyed by something. "Did you tell the cops?" "No. I didn't want to burden them further. They already have so much to handle." This earned another tch from Chad, who shook his head and adjusted his bathrobe a bit, which was another constant in the human's routine, as he was hardly ever seen without it. "Well, that's bull. Should have at least let them know. Maybe they could have helped. But guess it's time for me to do my thing." He grinned, flexing his arms slightly. Gribblespack was confused. What exactly did his friend intend to do? "My friend, I do not understand. Are we going to the police?" Gribblespack asked, while Chad slipped his feet into a pair of comfortable slip-on shoes called flip-flops. "Nah, I can handle this without them," he said, waving a hand dismissively, only confusing his alien friend further. With a cough, the human slipped out of the apartment and waited for his friend. "So, who took your stuff?" he asked, whilst they began their trek. "The Black Cobras," Gribblespack said, causing a brow to raise on Chad's face. "No shit. Huh. I get a oregano from them," he said, shrugging as he turned around on the spot and started heading in the other direction, the whip-whip of his flip-flops, the only sound for a moment. This was new information to Gribblespack, who did not know that his friend consorted with such violent and vile sorts. He wondered what other secrets the human kept. It took about 30 minutes to reach the hideout of the Black Cobras, and upon reaching it, they stopped a good distance away. From there, they could see the sort of but not really hidden entrance to the lair, which was guarded by something that looked like an armadillo fused with a praying mantis. A Vizier. One of the more violent and low species in the galaxy, third only to the Redacted. They were allies of humanity back during the wars, though only their enemies loathed those entities. Gribblespack rubbed his tendrils together, the vestigial limbs useless for anything but expressing emotions these days. The sight of the Vizier filled him with dread, for it had been one of them that had mugged him and taken his precious things. But Chad hardly seemed perturbed. If anything, he looked calm and cool, like this was normal. "Right. Shall we?" he said, and started forward, only for Gribblespack to stop and pull him back. "But how are you going to get past them? They'll hurt you. Do you have a weapon of some sort?" Gribblespack hissed, and Chad looked at him blankly. Well, I was just going to wave and smile while walking past, but let's see what I've got," the human said, reaching into the cavernous pockets of his bathrobe, which had already earned him many strange looks from those passing by. "Let's see, I have 4 sticks of gum, a couple pens, some tissues, ID, cash, monoblade, a potato, and..." He squinted. Gribblesback's mouth hanging open at all the random things his friend carried around with him. Then he was stuck with a most important question. "Why'd you carry a potato around?" At this, Chad shrugged. "Never know when I might get hungry for a nice potato. Pre-baked, too. Perfect for..." He paused for dramatic effect, before presenting a case that caused Gribblesback's eyes to cross from the absurdity of it. "You carry a carton of butter?" he asked, all earlier dread melting away like said butter on a freshly baked potato. "Yeah. Again, never know when it might come in handy," he said, grinning broadly as he began his advance on the Vizier guard. Gribblesback just watched him go, before rushing after him, the nervousness rising again. The guard perked up when Chad approached, and looked like he was about to stop Chad from going in, but instead stepped out of the way, though he did thrust out an arm to bar the way for Gribblesback. "Who's this, human Chad? You never bring others around," the Vizier said, staring intently at Chad's friend. "Oh, Gribblesback? He's a friend, my roommate actually. Your buddies in there nabbed his extra valuables, and we're here to reclaim them," he said casually, and the Vizier shot him a surprised look. "No good, human Chad. The oregano shipments are one thing, but that stuff was taken fair and square. Can't have it back." The guard looked a whole lot meaner now, and Chad just shrugged, before opening the carton of butter and holding up a stick of Miss Clifton's finest salted butter, humanity's #1 choice for butter products in the galaxy. The effect was immediate. The guard's bug-like eyes focused on the stick of butter, which was kept factory fresh by the carton's patented, always fresh systems. To a Vizier, human-made butter was akin to an illicit drug, as it induced extreme euphoria and very vivid yet delightful hallucinations for the Vizier. Considering no other species had made anything close to butter, it was a unique commodity. "You sure?" Chad said, grinning a bit as he moved the stick back and forth, the guard's head tracking it with unerring precision. "You let us in and don't stop us on the way out, and you'll get this, and another stick the next time I drop by for the oregano. Deal?" Mandibles clicked, and an obscenely long tongue slivered over them, the Vizier visibly vibrating with desire for the stick that Chad held. But he nodded, and Chad handed it over. Almost immediately, chitin-covered fingers peeled the wrapping away, and obnoxious slurping, plus moaning, ensued. Chad grimaced slightly, glanced at Gribblesback with a shrug, and then stepped inside, with his friend in tow. Immediately they were assaulted with loud music. Human electronica was another favourite of the galaxy, and a dimly lit room full of yet more Vizier. "Human Chad, my friend," bellowed a very large Vizier, the head of the Black Cobras. "What brings you here? It is not time for another shipment already, is it?" "Nah, I'm here for something else, actually. My roommate here got mugged by some of your boys, and his past family's valuables got taken. We were hoping to take them back if it wouldn't be too much trouble," Chad said, all while dropping down onto a free chair at the same table as the leader. Nobody stood to challenge him. Clearly this was normal. They didn't even balk when he put his feet up and leaned the chair back dangerously. The leader just stared down at him for a moment before sighing. "Alas, I cannot. You know our ways. Once it has been taken, it is ours. We cannot simply give it back without getting something of equal or greater value in return," the leader said, and once more Gribblesback's vestigial tentacles started to fidget. "Would you give it back if I gave you the rest of this?" Chad said, producing the carton once more, this time holding it up for all to see. Immediately, much as had happened outside, the Vizier occupants focused intently on the butter being presented to them. The music stopped, and a deathly silence fell upon the room. "Why, yes we would. Sweet, precious butter," the leader said, him and his cronies leaning forwards, drawing closer and closer to the carton, before Chad pulled it back and held it against his chest. "Awesome! Could somebody pack it up for us? Pretty please?" Chad asked, and the leader immediately smacked another Vizier on the back of the head and clicked rapidly at him. This particular crony scuttled away quickly, and not 2 minutes later returned with a box filled with the stolen items, plus some things that probably weren't Gribblesback's property. The box was placed before Chad and his friend, the latter of whom ensured that everything was there that had been stolen, before Chad placed the carton of butter on the table and slid it towards the Vizier. "Pleasure doing business with you," he said and stood, grabbing the box as he did. They beat a swift retreat, though they were in no danger, for behind them a cacophony of angry chittering, obscene slurping, and yet more moaning ensued, as every Vizier in the room attempted to get a piece of butter for themselves. Outside the lair, they found the guard slumped against the wall, staring into space with a string of drool hanging from his mouth. "Why would you go through all this trouble, Chad friend?" Gribblesback said, completely dazed by the happenings. "Because that's what best friends do, you know. Besides, I've always wanted to be called the Butter Pope," the human said, snorting to himself as he firmly patted Gribblesback on the back. The alien probably decided that he'd carry around a carton of butter for the rest of his days, just in case, and as they turned a corner, they could hear one last utterance from the Vizier, who were known as the Black Cobras. "The gods have blessed us with holy butter!"